Hello everyone and welcome to another collections showcase and another prototypes showcase, although today, now this originally was going to be one video and then I found another prototype and then I was told about another and then another one cropped up and then I was told about another and so on and so forth, and it kind of just built until I had all of these. So I decided that it would be better to do them all in one video. Now there's a few people I need to thank, or at least a couple of people I need to thank as I go through this video. Some who I will name, others who have asked not to be named, but I will thank them all the same. So first of all, we're going to look through each of these because obviously we've got quite a variety here, and it's certainly going to be some that I think are going to be very interesting. I've managed to find out some background about some of them, others still a little bit of a mystery, but I will tell you what I have managed to find. So let's crack on with the first one. So we're going to start off with this interesting thing. Now some of you may know recently I got hold of some prototype / unreleased sound effects Daleks. This has come from the same person. This one's gone around a little bit working out exactly what it is, but it does seem, because this can't be verified unfortunately, but it does seem to be a real pre-production figure. Now there was one like this actually on eBay fairly recently, so there are clearly some of these about, but so this has some interesting differences to the released versions we've got. For example, most notably it says Wave 2 up here, which isn't on the released versions, but obviously it's got with speech sound effects. It tells us about the 70s sound effects Daleks, the Try Me bit. It's got a drawn-on logo, obviously to show where the logo would go. Sound effects Daleks, Genesis 1975. Now, unfortunately, there's no sound. I don't know whether that's because the batteries have run out or whether there's no batteries in it. I'm inclined to say it's because the batteries have run out, but obviously I don't want to open it up to find out. But obviously, like you often get on prototype versions, it's made up of several different types of coloured plastic. We've got the grey and black on the base, we've got the white body, white dome, the arm is transparent, the eye is transparent. It's interesting on the eye as well. Now I've got this as close up under a microscope as I can. I don't know how easily I can catch it on screen, but the eye stalk does have a slightly blue tint to its clearness, and it seems the best place you can see it is on the eye rings. My first thought would have been that somebody could have removed the paint or something, but I have gone up as close as I can with a magnifying glass and a microscope, and or at least a handheld microscope, and I can't see any paint left on it. So it does seem that that does have a sort of slightly blue tinge to the plastic. Obviously then we've got the slats and the midsection are all done with different colours, and I don't know how well you can see it on the side there, but this globe and also the one further up at the back are also two different plastic types and colours as well. So it's interesting certainly because obviously I'm guessing it's meant to be a mock-up of how they were intended to look. Obviously we know the Genesis version came with Wave 2, so I'm guessing maybe this was they wanted to see how it would look in the box, or maybe they were planning on altering the packaging slightly. I don't know. Again, this is one of these ones that I couldn't find out a great deal of information about it, but it does certainly seem to be a mock-up version of what would have been the case of how it would have looked as well. And again, it's difficult to verify, but I have no reason to doubt that this isn't real. This has come from people who, you know, who I trust, who I've dealt with before, who I know wouldn't deliberately lead me astray. And the other thing that occurred to me actually when I was looking at this is over the years I did manage to get myself one or two sound effects Daleks. But one of the things I noticed, I looked at other people's unboxing videos and I noticed that when they unbox these, the plastic has a lot of the transfer still left on it, as you would expect with any kind of bubble pack. And I'm sure you could remove that with a bit of white spirit, but you would expect there always to be something left. And I really can't see anything, even on the back flap here. This plastic looks brand new. It doesn't look like it's had anything taken to it. So again, that's another reason why I'm inclined to say that this could be real. It's not that somebody couldn't clean it. I mean, hell, it wouldn't be it wouldn't be impossible for somebody to completely vacuum form a whole new front. But to go to that level of fakery seems very unlikely to me. So again, I have no reason to doubt it's real. I'm happy to have it in my collection. As I said, I know there was another one on eBay recently, very similar. So these clearly are around. These clearly do exist. So I see no reason to believe that it is a fake. And it's certainly one that, again, you know, I know that the sound effects Daleks are very highly sought after these days. So to have not only a prototype sound effect Dalek, or 3 prototype sound effect Daleks, but a 4th one in a box, a prototype mock-up box, is certainly very interesting. So that is definitely one that I'm very pleased. Well, I say definitely one. I'm happy to have all of these in my collection, but that is certainly one of the more interesting pieces that I have. Now for the next one here, we have the Impossible Astronaut. Now just to clarify, the prototype is on the left, the real released version is on the right, and I'm lucky enough to have one of the released versions just randomly in my collection, so it's good for comparisons. But already, the eagle-eyed amongst you can see quite a few interesting differences between the two. Now to take you over the obvious differences, which is the design. First of all, the prototype version has a much more sort of grimy, almost sort of darker, creamy wash to make it look a bit more grubby. This one is very plain white. There's obvious colour differences, such as on the finished version, these bits are black. On that one they're red, they're blue on that one, they're sort of burgundy here. This central piece here isn't painted on the prototype. The prototype version's got this extra bit of paint on the side here. The stickers on the arms are the same, and on the back, I believe the stickers are the same. There's no stickers on the other arm. The feet do have, again, a little bit of a difference in that the feet paint on this version is a slightly lighter grey to the slightly darker grey on here. The fingers also have a sort of greyish white tip to them here, whereas these ones have got the blue. And the stickers on this one as well is, on the released version, the sticker is black on yellow. On this version, it's blue on yellow. And then this one has a kind of what I will call the upside down Open University symbol, but this one has a blue circle on a sort of what's that tone? Dark cream coloured, ochre coloured, I should say, circle with a flat bottom, and this one just has a plain yellow on black. Again, they are all proper transfers. The heads inside are the young girl. It's interesting that they've chosen the young girl, seeing as this obviously does seem to be more the as it would be from River Song, but obviously the most noticeable difference. Whoops, daisy. They are quite top heavy. The most noticeable difference obviously is its left hand, which the finished version obviously has the same left hand, but if I bring this one a bit closer to the camera, it is a slightly sort of translucent green, and the it's all fully articulated as well. It's proper plastic, it's not sort of spongy plastic. And from what I can gather, this was originally intended to be a unreleased variant that was going to be... They really don't like standing up, these. Is an unreleased variant that was going to be from the Impossible Astronaut, that was going to be as if it had just come out of the lake, the energy in its hand. And I'm guessing that they would have put River Song's head in there. I'm slightly confused as to why they would put the little girls in there, but obviously with a prototype piece like this, they would use whatever's the first to hand, so perhaps the little girl's head was all they had to hand at the time. But that's the story behind this one. It's certainly very interesting, and I have to say, I actually think that it's a shame that this is, again, another variant that we never got released, because this certainly would have been one that I think would have been very popular amongst fans, because I know that sort of little variants and little extra bits like this of, you know, sort of the, for example, the Silence with the energy in their hands, and also the Cybermen, they were a lot more popular, it seems, than just the standard Silence or Cybermen. So it's the little things like that that do seem to draw people in. So it's certainly a very interesting, certainly a very interesting one to have, and certainly one that looks very good in my collection alongside the real one, given the fact that I've got the released figure. So yeah, it's certainly a very, very interesting piece. One that I certainly never knew existed until I'd seen it, but here it is, and I'm very pleased to have it. So next up here we have a prototype Earthshock Cyberman. This one is fairly simple in terms of it being a prototype. There's not really a huge amount to discuss around it because it does obviously look like a Earthshock Cyberman, but the couple of interesting things that most people will notice that isn't on the released version is, firstly, its torso midsection has this different coloured plastic. Now, anyone who's ever taken apart a Earthshock Cyberman will know that this part, this actual torso piece, is where's the seam on it? On this side, you can see the seam is actually a separate piece of plastic that fits over a completely smooth torso. So it's obviously been moulded. It's had the tube moulded in, which goes to the midsection, which goes to the chest plate. So that's obviously what they've done there. Is this is obviously the first mould, but also the other thing that's interesting, and obviously that most stands out about these prototype versions, because you won't always see the chest piece, but this is one thing you will see, is the mouthpiece is an entirely clear piece. Now on the released versions, unfortunately I don't have one to hand, but on the actual released versions, it is literally just the mouth plate that is clear. The rest of the outside bit is sculpted onto the head. So this is obviously the early version. They decided to try and do the whole mouthpiece in clear plastic, which is certainly very interesting because I don't know how well you can see it on camera. But the other thing that this stands out to me is if you look very carefully, and I'd imagine it's the same on the actual finished released figures, is there is actually an entire chin and mouth underneath there sculpted in, which is certainly a very interesting little detail I never noticed before. But that is the main difference on these versions, is the fact that the mouthpiece is an entirely different, plastic piece of sculpt. So I know that because I know that this is one that I've always been a little bit dubious about myself, because there was ones like this around a few years ago, and there was somebody who claimed to have one, and they didn't have the torso piece, but it allegedly had the mouthpiece, and they said, "Oh yeah, I've got one of these." In fact, I believe they actually said they've got several of them. They said, "Oh yeah, I've got one of these." "Oh no, actually, I've got several." And then when they were asked to show them, people just said, "Oh, can we have a look?" And they said, "Oh, well, I've got to find them, I've got to dig them out." And they sort of hesitated, and then eventually it got to a point where they were saying, "Oh, they're not, I thought they were." And I was like, I don't really understand how you make that difference, because I know there were, like, for example, I know there was, it might have been the same person, I'm not sure, this was a long time ago, who said that, oh, they have got one, but the mouthpiece had been painted. The clear mouthpiece had the paint already put on it, the silver paint, obviously, as it was supposed to do. And then they turned around and they said, "Oh no, actually, no, it isn't painted. I thought it was." And it's like, I don't think you did. So this is one that I know that you've got to be careful, because there are people out there who claim to have these that actually don't. And of the real ones, I haven't always seen them with the torso, but of the real ones, I have never seen them with the mouth already painted. So it does seem that the whole point of this is this mouthpiece was trialed to be clear, but then for whatever reason they decided not to do it, and they went with the full face sculpt with just what I would call the lip part clear. So this is one that you do need to be slightly wary of. Always check to see if it has actually got the full clear mouthpiece, because if it's got the full clear mouthpiece, then it is genuine. That seems to be the most obvious way of telling. So next up here we have this Auton Roman, or possibly just a Roman. I'm not sure which it is, but before I get onto this, I have to give a big shout out to Ozzy Denman of 7th Who Not, who informed me about this one. I would have missed it otherwise, so thank you for letting me know about it. It's greatly appreciated, and I know you've picked up one for your collection, so I hope that it goes along with your prototypes as well as it goes along with mine. But yes, this is a Roman, possibly an Auton Roman, possibly a normal Roman. It is unknown at this time. I have tried to look into it, but the problem is they both effectively use the same mold, so it is very difficult to tell which is which, but it's a very nice figure. Obviously it's all molded out. The torso midsection has got a slightly pinkish tone to its plastic, so it's obviously made of a slightly different one. It's a slightly more flimsy, flexible plastic. Obviously he's also got his sword, which is made in a plain white, and the dagger, which is also made in a plain white plastic. There's not really a huge amount to really say about this one. It is just one of those ones that occasionally, rather like the War Doctor and the Third Doctors I've got, they just... there are versions like this, and also the prototype Dalek I've shown you earlier. There are versions which just don't have paint on them yet, and they are just sort of pre-paint, pre-production prototype versions. That's pretty much all there is to say about this one, really. But it's still a very nice piece to have in the collection, because ones like this, it's always nice to see them without the paint on them, because it shows you a bit more of the detail of the sculpt, which is certainly a very interesting way to look at it, because it's once the paint's removed, you actually see how much detail goes into the actual sculpt itself. So next up we have this 11th Doctor. Now there really isn't a lot to say about this, because obviously some of you are going to go, well, it's just an 11th Doctor figure, but this was actually made as a promotional test item to show the updated sculpt they were using for Series 6, and also potentially, possibly for Series 7, had they not stopped the 5.5 inch range in the new series figures. Ironically, this test version actually does end up looking then like some versions of the outfits that were seen in Series 6 and Series 7, but this, as I said, this was pretty much just done as a test version to show the new ball-jointed arms, the new head sculpt, and also the full colour torso. It's interesting that they chose the red bow tie rather than the blue one for these, but yeah, a few of these are floating around on eBay. Some of you might have seen them, but I have passed these details and images of these on to again, people that know their prototypes, and they have said, yeah, these were just produced as a test piece just to show what they were like. Obviously they did versions that were painted, versions that were unpainted, so I imagine there are some unpainted versions out there. I haven't seen them yet, but I would imagine they're out there somewhere. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to this one. It's not a huge amount of trivia behind it, but it is just simply a test version that was produced. But it's a nice, interesting variant to have, shall we say? And lastly, we have this very interesting figure. So this is a 10th Doctor from Army of Ghosts with the 3D glasses and the Ghost Triangulation pack. Now, what is interesting about this one? Well, there's several interesting things about this one. Namely because it has... well, nobody seems to be quite sure where it's come from, which I'll get onto in a minute, but I'll take you over a quick look on the figure. So, now, most notably, obviously, we've got the 3D glasses. Now, the thing is, I've looked through all of the 3D glasses variants that we've had released over the years, and there has never been a 3D glasses and coat sculpt. I know it's a bit of a... some people go, well, hang on a minute, I seem to remember, but I have looked through them all, and I have not been able to find one. So... that's the first interesting thing that we've had that. The second thing you might well notice is that he has a white shirt and black tie. Now I've got up as very close as I can on the camera, but also as close as I can with a magnifying glass and a microscope, handheld microscope, and it certainly seems that there aren't any paint marks here, and even if we look at the neck, on the neck there aren't any paint marks, and the head is fully into the peg as well, so it's all properly fixed in. The other thing on it is that obviously he's got the backpack, and you may well notice the backpack has a slightly darker wash over it in places, especially around all the creases and things like that. It also has this extra added silver detailing on the side, which other versions I haven't seen have. So, where is this figure from? Well, nobody, as I said, is quite sure. There are 3 stories, one of which I actually have only very recently found, and I say very recently because I originally recorded this video, this part of the video, with the first 2 versions, and then as I was editing it, I got told, or at least I was informed about a potential 3rd version as usual at the very last minute, so I've decided to just quickly re-record this bit to go over them. So the first 2 are, firstly, that this was originally going to be released as part of the Doomsday set. Now, the Doomsday set was originally released in 2006 with a 10th Doctor in the coat, a Dalek Sec, and a Cyberman figure. It was then re-released in 2007 with the Cyberman, Dalek Sec, and a non-coated 10th Doctor, but with 3D glasses. The first version with the coat didn't have the 3D glasses. And I believe the 2007 version was the first time we'd seen the 3D glasses head sculpt as well. Now, it was further re-released in 2013 for the US market with a Cyberman, a updated, newer version, Dalek Sec with a newer sculpt, and a non-coated 10th Doctor with 3D glasses but with the End of Time head sculpt. Now, supposedly, one of the stories that I was told that has been passed on to me is that this was originally going to be released in 2007 for the Doomsday box set rather than the non-coated 3D glasses 10th Doctor. But the problem is that the triangulation equipment 10th Doctor from Army of Ghosts wasn't released until 2008. Now, it's possible that they did plan it ahead and then bump it back for release, but again, it's a bit of a date discrepancy, so that seems unlikely. So the second story of where this is from is that this was originally going to be in the original Army of Ghosts box set. Now, the released Army of Ghosts box set features Mickey Smith, a Dalek, the Genesis Ark, and a destroyed Cyberman, which, apart from in the final scenes, you could argue, none of them actually appeared in Army of Ghosts. They all appeared in Doomsday, so it's certainly an odd choice. And supposedly, this was going to be released in Army of Ghosts along with the Ghost Cyberman, which we know exists. I've got one of the prototypes myself, so we know that that figure was also produced as a prototype. So it was going to be released with this version, an Army of Ghosts Cyberman, a Ghost Cyberman, and lastly, an unreleased Rose Tyler repaint slash prototype version, because as some of you will know, the only sort of Rose Tyler figure we've had from Series 1 anyway was the Disco, was called the Disco Pose Rose, but they did produce a resin prototype that was a full sort of standing figure version. However, the figure never got produced due to Billie Piper's use of likeness, but using that figure, I have mocked up, the photo I'm about to show you is a mock-up that I have done myself of how the supposed Army of Ghosts Rose figure would have looked. And obviously it's just a basic repaint of the Series 1 figure, but allegedly this is the figure that we would have gotten. The problem here, again now, is that we know that that resin figure never got produced, so it's unlikely they would have used that. Even if they had used the Series 2 head sculpt, it seems unlikely if that figure had never been produced that they wouldn't have done that. And it still brings up the same problem that the Army of Ghosts box set was released in, now I want to say either 2006 or 2007, that's on my part that I didn't look up which one it was. But the problem then still remains is, again, we've got the date discrepancy of if this figure wasn't released until 2008, how could it have been originally planned for release in a 2006-2007 box set? It's possible they had Forefront, again, insight, and then they decided to not do it, and then it got dropped and used at a later date. But the chances of that seem unlikely. Which brings us on to the third story, and this is the one that now seems the most likely to me. This is the one I've literally only found out about an hour before filming this, so on, is that this was originally supposed to be released as part of the 2009 Tesco sets. So some of you may know that Tesco had several exclusive 3-packs, rather similar to the B&M ones, which were basically re-releases. However, they did have some new figures and exclusive figures, such as they did one of their box sets had a Corwin figure from Series 342, a Time Lord figure, and also a Captain Jack figure, but an exclusive version that didn't have the coat, and that's the only place that figure was available, so it was an exclusive figure. And so it certainly seems that Tesco did produce, at least they had some license to produce exclusive figures for their sets. Now, allegedly, this was going to be the original release as part of one of their sets, which featured a Cyber Leader, the 10th Doctor with all the triangulation gear, and the Hoiks. And for whatever reason, we ended up getting the standard 10th Doctor that was seen in 2008, the original carded release. But supposedly, this was one of the ones that originally was intended to be released with a new version of the shirt and tie, and also a new variant combination of the 3D glasses, head sculpt, and the coated suit. Which makes sense, because that is how it appeared in Army of Ghosts. That is how he appeared. So, as I said, we've got 3 stories, all of which are possible but unconfirmed. But of the 3, I think the Tesco's one probably seems the most likely, just simply because the other 2 have discrepancies in the date, and like I said, whilst the first one, the Doomsday set idea, is a big date discrepancy of about 2 years. The second one has the date discrepancy of about 2 years, and whilst it does mean that we know one of the other figures was produced as a prototype, the Ghost Cyberman, we know that the Rose Tyler figure probably wasn't, so that's a bit of a strange one. But the Tesco set one seems to all add up date-wise, and as I said, we know that the Tesco set got other exclusive figures, so why would they not get this as an exclusive figure? Personally, if I had to make a judgment call on this one, I would say that I probably don't think this is a real prototype. I certainly hope I'm wrong, and it wouldn't be the first time. For example, you know, the Impossible Astronaut one I showed you earlier, I didn't know that existed as a prototype before, but that's since been confirmed as a real, genuine prototype, so that's the case. And some of you may remember I had some holographic 10th Doctor figures in bright orange. I assumed that they were knockoffs, but they have since been confirmed to be genuine prototypes before colour correction. So stranger things have happened. And you know, it's not the first time that prototypes that we didn't think were real are real. It's not the first time that uncommon prototypes have suddenly cropped up out of nowhere. So, as I said, you know, my personal thought immediately is this probably isn't real, but I will admit there is a distinct possibility that it could be. Make up your own minds, as it were. I know my thoughts. It would be interesting to hear what your thoughts are on the matter. So that brings to a close another collections showcase. As always, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Like, favorite, subscribe, share, it really helps me out a lot, and be sure to check out the description below for a link to my Patreon. I'm doing my very first figure animation, and you can get involved. There's exclusive content and rewards for those who do so, and funding my Patreon in any way gets your name at the end of my videos. And be sure to sign in or check out this Saturday, 2 PM, my 1000th video live stream from 2 PM UK time. I salute you all, and I will see you with another video very soon.